Hi. Welcome to the Human Design for Marketing podcast. I'm your host, Yvette Mayer, and this show's for you if you're done with cookie cutter marketing and ready to build your personal brand in alignment with who you really are. Let's dive in. Hello, I'm Yvette Mayer, and this is the Human Design for Marketing podcast. Welcome back, or welcome if this happens to be your first time joining us. Whatever the case, I'm extremely grateful to have you with us. In this episode, we're going to be exploring the unconscious gates in your human design body graph and how they can and will influence and impact your marketing and the way that others receive your energy. I wanted to start with what even are the unconscious gates? Well, if you're looking at your body graph, the unconscious gates are the ones that sit on the left-hand side of your body graph. They typically are in red, but it does depend on which software that you're using. So these gates are actually an imprint of exactly 3 months before our time of birth. And it's in this way that they're actually more embedded into us. So therefore, these are strengths, talents, and gifts and opportunities for growth that are deeper within us. And largely, we are unconscious to them. But the interesting thing with these less conscious parts of us is that others are going to pick up intuitively on these elements. And so they tend to be parts of ourselves that others see in us more than we see in ourselves. So things that people innately understand about us without us even saying a word. And this is absolutely going to influence how people perceive and receive your energy in your marketing. Hence why I thought this was such a great topic to bring to the podcast. Now, I typically will tell you focus on the personality side gates, the ones on the right-hand side, because these are conscious and these are therefore frequencies and energies that you're going to feel are much easier to access and more of a sense of seeing yourself in these energies. And therefore, when you think about expressing them, it's natural. However, there is a level of value and opportunity in also going into that deeper layer and starting to work with these frequencies that are so innate to us that others pick up intuitively, and allowing ourselves to dance with these other frequencies. And maybe I'm going to share some ways you can experiment with them towards the end of this episode, but maybe start to broaden out how we work with the energies and the frequencies in our body graph in our marketing, so that whilst we're very comfortable and actively in the energies that are in particular placements in our body graph, like our personality sun and our personality Mercury, we're very used to this. If you're a long-term listener or you've done any of my programs, you know that these are very prominent marketing energies. But there is also this deeper innate nature that we can experiment with and start to see whether, when we're leaning into these parts of ourselves that are less conscious, whether others are actually responding even more. It's worth experimenting with, don't you think? Okay, so with that, I think the next thing we need to explore is how the planets influence each of the gates. So we're not going to talk about every single gate on your unconscious side, but I will explain to you some of the key positions on your unconscious side for Mercury, so you have something to really play with as a result of listening today. So we're going to explore 4 specific placements on your unconscious side, and I'm going to reference why they are important. So the first one, the very obvious one, is your unconscious or your body's wisdom side in your sun placement, okay? So the role of this placement is that it is a very key and core attraction energy for you. Now, in this placement on the body's wisdom, unconscious side, this really is the big energy that others unconsciously feel from you. So it's the strongest unconscious energy you have in your chart. And you're actually likely to be broadcasting on this frequency without realizing it. So it's already happening for you. Okay. So you may not observe this, but others will. To give you an example, I have the gate 41 in my unconscious sun. And this gate is very much about slowing down to see the bigger picture and getting all the details in place before really pushing yourself forward into go mode and creating what you want to create. This is the first gate in the human design transit year, which we've only just moved through in the sun transit. Gosh, when was that? Maybe 2 weeks ago as I record this. So it's an energy that I've certainly been talking about in some of my other content, in my YouTube transit video on the 41, over on the Instagram broadcast channel that I have. By the way, if you're not in that channel, and if you don't even know what that is, inside my Instagram page, I have a channel set up called background frequency. And every time the sun moves into a different gate, a different transit gate, I share where the sun has moved into and what that influence is like and what we would feel around us energetically so that we can work with that new energy as it comes through, appreciating that our audience is feeling this energy and therefore we can create more resonant and relevant content. Complete sidebar. Anywho, okay, so the 41 is in my unconscious sun. Now, I would not say to you that I am somebody that is incredibly well prepared or that I'm good at patience. I am really super organized with seeing the big picture and setting myself up. Do you see this in me though? Because I suspect that you do. And as I'm speaking this, I'm like, wow, I actually talk about how I've created so much success in the human design for marketing space. And it was because I got very clear on what I wanted to achieve. Oh my God, I'm just like, I'm seeing it now. And then built a strategy that I knew was going to take time and be worth it and allow myself to maybe take a step backwards from some of the business success that I'd experienced and allow for this to become something that I'm known for. And yeah, it was a real process. So yes, this may be something that you intuitively sense from me already. And that is my big unconscious energy. The next one would be your earth, so your unconscious earth. So in both sides of your chart, we haven't explored this much from a marketing context. When you're talking about your earth, it's really what grounds you. It balances out that big energy of your sun placement. And again, this is something that will balance you as a marketer. So it kind of provides some stability and groundedness to how you show up and your frequency. So thinking about this, when you want to create content from your earth, it should feel easeful, it should feel calming rather than bring your bigger, more infectious nature through potentially. So it is a good one to think about from a marketing perspective, both sides actually. But with this unconscious level, it's kind of what people feel steadiness from you that you are not so conscious of yourself. Now, I happen to have the 31 here, and as someone who built a really high level career in corporate and was a leader, this is the gate of leadership. So I am very aware that I am seen as a leader, but it is true that I don't feel like a leader. It is something that I was dragged into versus I put my hand up for, is the truth. And so again, you can see here how others have pulled this less conscious energy through me and for me and invited me to step onto stages and platforms. And that's very true of an unconscious energy. Now, of course, we're going to explore your Mercury placement being the channel of communications or the planet of communications. So your gate here on your unconscious side, This one is going to be more around the message that is kind of hidden. So maybe you're not consciously creating messaging from this placement, but others feel this in your content, whether that is in your energy, whether it's in the way that you express yourself without conscious thought. They are literally picking this up through the way you communicate. So take a look at what you have sitting here. You can't make this stuff up. Okay, so I'm going to share with you which gate I have here. And once more, you are going to say, you just cannot make this stuff up. My gate in my unconscious Mercury, which lovely, lovely, lovely energy, is the 58. It is the gate of joy. It is the joyous, the vitality. Now, I resonate with this because I know I have this bigger, more infectious energy, but it's not something that I consciously project. So I would imagine that you feel this from me more in my energy than in what I'm saying, because I'm more conscious to my personality Mercury, which is about difficulty at the beginning. So my words are more in the realm of things are broken, didn't work. Here's what I did to move myself through, and here's how I innovate and become more light and free. That's my conscious communication, and that's what I definitely share regularly. But my unconscious communication is the joyous. It is vitality. And even as I'm sharing this, if you happen to be watching the podcast on YouTube, you'll see my infectious energy. So yes, you cannot make this stuff up. All right. And then the last one we've talked about this unconscious position in your chart a lot is your Mars. The reason we've talked about it is in the gene keys, this particular placement on your chart is your core wound. So the low frequency in this position tends to be what's blocking you from having prosperity and abundant success through your work. Now, this is definitely of interest in marketing because it's aligned to what you actually do for work. It is also a part of you that brings out the fight in you that maybe you feel some frustration around, and you do bring that into the things that you communicate are worthy of fighting for. So it is a placement that can kind of bring that bigness in your opinion and perspective out. But it can also be an area where in your marketing, this energy can make you feel stuck or frustrated or pressured. So have a look what you have going on there. Mine is the 14. Gate 14 is this incredibly bounteous energy, which in the high frequency sounds amazing. I mean, it's depicted by a chariot full of gold. But in the low frequency, it's about compromising yourself. And I had done a lot of deep diving on this placement and seen myself and my shadows in this compromise. So what you might feel from me is both this unconscious inability to set clear boundaries. You might observe that from me, pick up on that intuitively. You may also see the high frequency in me, which is that when I'm in alignment, things look easy and that they come easy to me and that I'm incredibly competent. So you see how they both work. So what I'd love for you to do is to, when you have a moment, maybe if you're driving right now, don't do it now, is to stop this podcast and actually write down, take a look at your chart, what you have in each of these particular planets on your unconscious side, so that you can start to really contemplate, how does this show up in your marketing? Now, if you're like, none of this feels very true for me, I would also encourage you to talk to your peers, your friends, people that are close to you, And without giving them the context that you're doing this because you want to understand your unconscious side to do with human design, but just ask them how they perceive you intuitively. What are the things that they feel from you even before you speak? I think you're going to find that incredibly insightful. So the big questions to ask yourself on this topic are, what do people feel from you before you even say a word? What recurring themes come up for you in your business that are very unintentionally, but you can see patterns? And where are the biggest frustrations that have come up for you? What holds you back in your business? I want you to ask yourself these questions as you have a look at these key placements in your unconscious chart. And then the next step would be, are there content opportunities in these placements and spaces from doing this exercise? Does it naturally trigger me into thinking about content that I potentially haven't brought into my marketing in the past? Because when people are feeling you, it feels very magnetic for you to speak and feel in cohesion. So this is a space for you to look at, how do I tune into the unconscious part of me and actually project some of that outwards and even further amplify my natural powers of magnetism? So do that. Another couple of things that you could do is pick just one of those placements. So say you're working with your unconscious sun, just pick this one energy and this one gate, and for a whole day, really observe this in yourself and just notice, does this feel like a natural energy for me to work with? And really think about, am I embodying this in any way in my brand? And does it provoke or evoke different ways of expressing myself than maybe I have in the past? That's the first thing that I would do as a really kind of deep dive exercise. And another thing I think would be really worth you doing is exploring in more depth your unconscious Mercury and going into this like low frequency of this placement and the high frequency, and looking for how that shows up in your life and seeing if you can connect the dots into your business's mission and your audience to create a piece of content that is completely inspired by your unconscious Mercury. Good, right? So that is it for this episode. I trust what you came for has been delivered. As some next steps, I'd really love you to explore the unconscious side of your chart, in particular to look at some of these key placements like your Sun, your Earth, your Mercury, and your Mars. And then take the next step and actually use this episode as a guide to experimenting with some specific exercises that I've shared with you. So firstly, asking yourself those key questions, and then looking at those two exercises that I dropped at the end about your personality sun and spending a whole day observing that energy, and then I just said personality sun, I meant your unconscious sun, sorry about that. And then next up, your unconscious Mercury, and really feeling into that energy and creating a piece of content around that. Love to hear how you go with this. Make sure you drop into my Instagram DM anytime and let me know. Share the fact that you're listening to this podcast. I'd love you to invite your friends to join us. Leave me a review. 5 stars would be nice. And I look forward to being back in your ears sometime real soon. Bye for now. There are heaps more resources in the show notes. I can't wait to be back in your ears again soon. Bye for now.